Let's see now. All right. Looks like we're getting most of them on now. Let's get some people coming in. Welcome everybody on the replay. The people on the live probably aren't on yet. We've got the honor of having David Icke in the house today. I'm going to play one of our intros real quick. We'll be back in about a minute and 45 seconds. Allow people time to come in. Be right back.
Todd Medina, Soulogy One Studios. What's going on here? Democracies, aristocracies, oligarchies, monarchies, hierarchies, presidents and popes. What's the real dope? What's this all about? Faith, hope, doubt? That's all that earth stuff, man. I am a multi-dimensional, high-vibrational, evolutionary being, and I'm tired of hiding it. I am soul. I don't care who or what tried or is trying to deceive us. Call it the devil or another's Messiah, prophet, or God. It's all the same to me. Whoever they are, they can never take our souls, and that's when we came here to learn. From the burn of being wrong, denying who we are, taking orders, lawless laws, a branded existence, but not anymore. I am divinity. Yeah. All right. The power we hold to mold the future, heavenly nirvana. From the inside, present, eternal. It's time to be a bolder flame. The game isn't the same. We are the spirit science synthesis, the action of conscious thought, alignment, transmuting to a living wisdom. Yeah. No longer dreaming the life, I am living the dream.
How's it going, everybody? We got David Icke in the house. It's an honor to have him here. I have to say a couple of things on behalf of everybody. He's probably one of the top 100 researchers in the last 100 years in this world, and has probably woken up more people in this world, in my opinion, than anybody else has. So I just want to say, David, to you first, thanks for coming in. Thanks for sharing space with us. And thank you for your service to humanity. It's a pleasure to have you, sir.
Well, that's very kind. It's a pleasure, as always. This is the time when, obviously, that which is behind current events and has been behind so many negative impacts on the world over such a vast amount of time, if you chart it back, it doesn't want this information circulating. That's, of course, what all the censorship is about. So we have to do everything we can to keep this going and be light on our feet and dodge and weave and do whatever is necessary to overcome it, because they are not trying to destroy information and delete information for a bit of fun. They're doing it because without it, they can't possibly achieve what they want.
You have one second. You have another device that just came in and it's messing up the audio.
Right.
You have a second device on. Let's see.
No, I have one device. I've never had this before. We've got some birds in the studio. Yeah, what's going on?
Look at that. There's two of you now. Let's see if that works. That's strange. How's that? Better?
That's good for me.
Oh, no, I'll have to try it again.
I guess when I speak, you're getting some kind of feedback, right?
Yeah, it's showing that you got two devices on. This is crazy.
Really?
Yeah. Well, it looks like it's coming from the same computer. Yeah.
Really?
It just popped on. Yeah. Test. Uh-oh. That's kind of weird. But every time we have technical difficulties, we always have a great show. Everybody, let's put our energy together and see if we can get this thing going. Yeah, I watched Renegade 2 nights ago for the second time. I was just talking to David about it. Anyway, let's see what happens here. Oh, there's a third one. Hang on a second. He's got another one coming in now. All right, hang on. Let's try that. How's that?
How's that? Am I making a funny noise still?
No, but there's... Oh, I don't know what's happening. This is crazy.
I've never had that before.
I've actually got four. Okay, so I got three. But this one's working now, so we're okay. Well, something's definitely. Uh-oh. Yeah. No, that
Nice.
funny noise. Yeah, it's back. I don't know. The only thing I could say is to get out and go back in. We can try that. Go ahead. Let's see. Are you there?
There.
Yeah. Okay. Doesn't look like there's a. Okay. How's that? How's that?
One,
Is
two,
that
three.
better? Yeah. I
Oh,
think
we're
that's.
there.
Yeah, I think we're there. It's a little bit faint, but we'll make it. We'll
All
make it.
good. Yeah,
Okay.
it's a strange one. That never had that before.
Well, we've had a lot of strange things happen on this show. Believe me, we've even
Yeah.
had people disappear, all kinds of stuff. So yeah, let's get down to it. I mean, I had a couple of things I wanted to ask you about, just in terms of your personal journey. Let me just kind of preface it like this. Many of the people that are watching right now live, that are in this community and communities that overlap with our community at Soulogy, have had a similar life experience as you.
Right.
They obviously don't have the public awareness that your work does and your energy does, but many of the people, including myself, had what we might call a wake-up experience, something like you had in 1991, and then further expanded at Machu Picchu.
Okay.
They received an awakening message or download. From that point in their life, they started following this guidance. They also had the impression, and continue to this day, that they were not alone, like you said in Renegade. And by virtue of following this guidance, they were ridiculed. They were estranged from their family,
Oh,
very similar to your life path. And yet here we are in 2021 in this Orwellian state, and two things have happened. The distortion has gotten louder and louder, yet the guidance has gotten louder and louder as well. And I think we're all trying to integrate what we're experiencing externally and what we're receiving internally. And this is where we're at today. So I think this is a very special moment. I guess my first question, David, would be, how do we change the external? How do we make this thing happen? How do we raise the frequency of this earth?
well, as people from what you just said, watching this will know, is that what we call the external is a projection of the internal. Our perceptions become our reality. And, I'm very interested. I didn't know that this is what we were going to talk about, but this is the area that absolutely fascinates me. Not just that, it is the way out, because we live in a reality that has two worlds in it. One world is that which is populated by the mass of nearly 8 billion people. And that world is systematically limited in terms of the knowledge that it's allowed to have. I mean, you can find it if you go looking for it, but generally, people are not aware of that knowledge, which is kept from them. This is what the education system's about. It's what the mainstream media is about. It's what Silicon Valley's about. It's holding people in tram lines of knowledge, what I call the postage stamp consensus, a very narrow band of perceived possibility. And then you have this other world, which is made up of a global web of secret societies, semi-secret groups that has knowledge well, across a big range, but in two major areas that it desperately wants to keep from the population. And that's what secret societies are all about. And I'm not talking about, Fred and Bill who go down the Freemasons lodge. I mean, they might do a bit of manipulation in the local community and a bit of business and stuff. But I'm talking about the inner core of this global cult. And this secrecy is blatantly to keep things secret. So what? Okay, so one aspect of it is to keep from us where the world's being taken. So what we are supposed to believe is that world events, even society-changing events, are random and have come out of nowhere. Take this COVID hoax now. But crucial for what we're talking about now, and crucial to the control, is this other area of knowledge they want to keep from us, and that's the nature of reality and the nature of the I. So if you look at human society and the way it's been structured, systematically, you're looking at a limitation on knowledge, and crucially, a limitation on the nature of reality and who we are. So, for instance, you can have a choice between believing in a religion, although that's being targeted, not least the Christian religion now, big time. Or you can believe that this world is all there is, and you have your 70 years and 10 or whatever, and then you come out of nowhere and you go back into nowhere, and that's it. But this other whole area of the fact that we are awareness, we are a point of attention within an infinite flow of awareness, and what we call human is just a brief experience without awareness. And in fact, the true I is not what we perceive as the physical world. It's the consciousness that's having the experience of the physical world. So again, if you look at the way it's structured and you look at the way people are encouraged in channels of perception, we are pressured and encouraged to self-identify the true I with the labels of what we're experiencing. So if you say to somebody, hello, nice to meet you, who are you? They'll give you their life story, they'll give you their job, they'll give you their sexuality maybe, they give you their politics, whatever. And all these things are just labels, race, just labels of it for an experience. So, someone may be black, maybe white, maybe, brown, sky blue, bloody pink. But that's just the vehicle for consciousness to experience itself and experience this particular reality. But the idea is to pull you in to self-identity, the I, with the labels. Because once you do that, of course, now you're self-identifying with limitation. Because once you think who you are is what you're experiencing, the world of the five senses, then suddenly everything looks impossible. Changing anything looks impossible. It looks incredibly slow, even if you try, because this is the realm of I can't. It's not possible. And if you note what's been happening in the run-up to where we are now, they have been systematically, again, subdividing those labels. So you have a man label, you have a woman label, you have a this label or that label. And now, of course, we've got this big, long, ever-growing list of letters where each letter is self-defining what I would call an experience, what they would call the self, in minute detail. And the more that this process goes on, the more people are seeing themselves in greater and greater myopic perception. So the I am R, as I would call it, goes from I'm all that is, has been, and ever can be, down into the fine detail of sexuality or whatever. And so this has been done on purpose because the world, this other world, knows how reality works. And it knows that if the population realized, and the population realized the nature of the true I, then its game is over. And this is why what we're talking about here is so important, because if we fall into the trap, especially now in current times, of believing that the I is the labels, the I is the little me, if you like, instead of the big infinite me, then it looks very, very dark and very dangerous, and the world seems a dangerous place that there seems to be no answer to it. But when you realize that what we call the world is merely a collective projection of human perception, and that if you believe that you are little me, you'll live a little me life, because what you believe you perceive, what you perceive you experience, then you start to realize, because this world is not solid, but it's energetic, it's information, and therefore it's malleable, it's changeable. And so if we had for instance, tonight for me, a massive global transformation in human perception, this world will change immediately. It would have to. This is just a projection of it. So if you look at just very quickly, if you look at 2020, all that has been right up to present time is a projection of human perception. Two types mainly that's got us into this mess. One which simply gets its perception off the peg from and off the shelf from government and authority, and it believed that there was a deadly virus, and the authority said, because it always knows best, that the only way to protect yourself from it and your family from it is to go under house arrest and do what they say. So that was that perception became the reality of mass lockdown and house arrest and dismantling of the economy. Number two perception were those that actually realized actually there's more to know here. There's something strange going on. And I don't believe the government are telling us the truth. But their perception is, if I go against it, well, there will be consequences for me from authority, and therefore I'm going to go under house arrest as well. And as usual, it was the few, and continues to be the relative few, it's getting bigger and bigger all the time, mind, that say, A, I can see it's a scam, A, I can see I'm being lied to, and I'm not going to cooperate with it. And it's that latter group that is going to turn this around, if anyone is.
Yeah. This community and the communities that overlap with it, again, have a lot of similarities in their individual past, like you do, as I said before. One of the things that's very common in this community is that these individuals have a connection, let's just say, with infinite intelligence. Some of that connection is angelic, some of it is elemental, some of it is other divine essences, and a big part of it is galactic. Now, there is a disclosure platform out there, there's a conspiracy platform out there, you might call it, and then there's what I would call the star seed or way shower or light worker platforms, which we would probably fall under. One of my goals is to try to unite all three of those into a singular voice. But having said that, you and those like you have educated us and explained to us that there are higher intelligences behind what we see as the leaders, as the movers and the shakers in the world, the controllers. We can talk about the reptilians, we can talk about the archons and such. Now, the other side of that is this. These folks out here are receiving intelligence from somewhere that is benevolent, that is saying that there's a mission here to turn this thing around and raise the frequency of the earth. Now, where I'm going with this is also because of people like you, and a big part of it is because of you, that these controllers have had a vision or some type of clue at a minimum as to what was going to happen tens of hundreds of years down the road. They set us up, just like, for instance, with the Rothschilds, like you've explained to us, how they set up the central banks and how that was all premeditated. Now, what I'm getting at is right now there seems to be somewhat of a rift in this community in regard to QAnon and Trump. There is a narrative that there are white hats in the government, that there are benevolent beings that are working with these white hats against the controllers, and the malevolent forces behind them. Do you have any opinion or anything you can add to this, or maybe open up for us?
Well, all I can say is this: I've been on this journey consciously for 30 years, and so I've seen it come, and I've seen it go, and I've seen it come, and I've seen it go. And this whole idea of some force within the government going to arrest the bad guys. So basically, you don't have to do anything. The plan's in place. Yeah, it's all right. It's all sorted. I've heard so many times with different names given to the good guys that I've seen it come and I've seen it go. I've listened to radio station hosts telling me that there is a date when this is going to happen. And then that date passes and it doesn't happen. And there's another date. And I'm talking now, when am I talking? When I heard these radio shows saying this, it must be 5, 6, 7 years ago.
Wow.
And I listened to them. I thought, it's not going to happen. The point is that we have to do it. It's not going to be done for us. Yeah. And therefore, any idea of we'll just sit there because the plan's in place is just putting off the moment when we do what's necessary to make a difference here. And it's if you break down how humanity is controlled and how it's been controlled all the way through known human history, this goes back a very long time. It's through control of perception. That's what it is. It's manipulating people to see themselves in the world and events in a certain way so that they will behave as a result of that belief the way that which has manipulated that belief wants them to behave. I mean, 2020 up to present day is an absolute classic of its kind in that regard. And so sitting back and waiting for the good guys to arrest the bad guys, well, I've heard it all before. And it's putting off the day when we have to look this in the eye and say, we ain't blinking. Yeah. And, I hear the labels. And again, I can only come from where I'm coming from. I don't deal in labels in that sense. When people said to me, who are you? I don't find a higher level label, or I'm from this realm, or I'm from that realm, or I'm this, or I'm that. I just say I'm all that is, has been, and ever can be, having an experience. And when this experience is over, I'll be all that is, has been, and ever can be, and I'll be having another experience. So I just see myself as awareness, a state of being aware. And coming to what you were saying a few minutes ago, we talk about other realms and connections to other realms, but we are the other realms. We are the other realms. We are communicating with ourselves because we, all of us, are not just a point of attention, although the body focuses that attention in the human life. We're not just a point of attention within this infinite field of consciousness and awareness. We are that field. And the question is, how much of that field, that infinity, are we going to tap into? In other words, how much of that infinity are we going to identify with? Are we going to identify with that little bit that calls itself David Icke, born in Leicester, England in 1952? Or are we going to self-identify with the infinite field itself? And the more that you open your self-identity, the more of this field you're tapping into. As your self-identity moves out of the label self, phantom self, as I call it, and into a perception of infinite self, that very redefinition of identity, the I, expands your consciousness in relation to the scale of awareness that you are self-identifying with. Now, coming back again, and it's very important because this is how it works, I would suggest. This other world of secret societies, the global cult, as I call it, it knows this, and it's set up society specifically to hold people in a deeply limited sense of self-identity. And it's moving towards, and it's talking about it openly in the next 10 years, to connecting artificial intelligence to the human mind, the human brain, so that instead of a awareness that we now call human, even in the 5 sense version of it, we then become simply a computer terminal for AI. And these crazies, they're insane, in Silicon Valley are openly talking about this as a good thing. You'll be superhuman, we'll be gods. No, you won't. You'll be superhuman, you'll be subhuman. That's the whole idea. And so this whole area of who am I, what is the true I, is not some esoteric navel contemplating. It's fundamental to where we go from here. Because if we just identify with the 5 sense world and we try to change the 5 sense world within the 5 sense world, it ain't going to change. I mean, people might have noticed that in 2020. It's going to change when we take on a different self-identity and start tapping into that wisdom, that awareness, that inspiration, and also the power, as you mentioned, of the frequencies that we can, once we tap into, bring into this world and change the energetic nature of this reality. That's how things are going to change. And it's this area, and this is the reason that all the way through the last 30 years, whenever I've written a book about the names, dates, places, agenda, always been massively infused with the nature of reality, because that's what they want to keep from us. And they want to do that because that's the way out of here.
Yeah, great answer. I want to kind of tie this together with something else I wanted to ask you about. I saw somebody ask you one time, aren't you afraid, with all the information that you put forth in 30 plus years, aren't you afraid of some type of retaliation? And I loved your answer. And it's connected to what you're saying. I want to keep going with it. You said something to the effect of, it doesn't enter my field. I don't allow that threat to enter my field. I, fortify my own energetic field. I go forth doing what I do with this essence with me. Because I heard you say on Renegade that you've never felt alone. You've always felt like something was with you. And I know the people here can relate to that. The other thing that you said was that when you had the wake-up experience and you started on this journey of the last 30 years, that anytime that you started on a project, say a book or whatever the case was, anytime you followed the guidance, synchronistically, people came to you, information came to you, and things came to you. And again, a lot of the people watching this can relate to that because our lives have paralleled yours. Now, what I'm getting at is, in terms of turning this thing around and going off the great answer that you just gave us, in kind of a nuts and bolts rules of the road, how do we go forward? I think what I'm getting from you is that we maintain and fortify our energetic field. We move forward in alignment, and the things that we need will come to us in synchronicity. It's almost like the best defense is a good offense. I mean, like, you don't seem to be pulled down by the negatives that you're contending with. You seem to be moving against it in a positive motion. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, there's a few things to that. I could talk for a few hours now.
Go ahead. We're all ears.
One of them is this idea that information is negative or positive. It's information. Knowledge is not negative or positive. It's knowledge. And, you can see the uncovering of appalling happenings and manipulations. I spent decades doing that. You can see that as negative. And over the years, some of the most vehement critics of me have been so-called spiritual people, because they've said to me, "Oh, you that's negative. You're putting out all that negative information." Well, I don't perceive it as negative, and I don't think that knowledge is negative. It's knowledge that of, for instance, the appalling things that are going on, who's doing them, and how. That gives you the gift of being able to understand the game and therefore play it in a more effective way. If you don't know how you're being manipulated, or even that you are being manipulated, then nothing's going to stop you being manipulated. You know, if someone's manipulating you behind your back, you've got no chance of doing anything about it. And then when someone taps you on the shoulder and says, "Look, I've got something to tell you," you know that bloke, you know, you've been trusted. Well, you know what he's doing. Now suddenly you have knowledge. It's not nice knowledge, because you don't want to think that this guy's been manipulating you for ages, but you now have the knowledge to stop it. So this information is to me, it's always a way out of here by understanding how we got into here and how we are maintained here. And you know, in terms of what do we do? Well, I can tell you what I've done for 30 years, and that's follow my intuition. It comes from here in the heart. There's something that you can think, and you can get emotion from down here, and there are different ways of processing information. But this is where I've been coming from all these years, and this is what I've been following. And I mean, people listening to this will understand what I'm saying when I say that you get a feeling here which says yes, which says no, which goes, well, more to know. And that's what I've been doing for all these decades, following this. And this is what's led to the synchronicity of information coming to me, people coming to me, experiences coming to me, because this for me is basically how humanity has become trapped. This says, do what you know to be right. Do what you know to be right. The consequences, okay, you don't go looking for trouble, but if trouble's coming because you're doing what you know to be right, well, trouble can come because I'm doing what I know to be right. That's non-negotiable. But what happens is the head kicks in and the gut kicks in and gives you all the reasons why you shouldn't do what you know to be right. This will give you the fear, and this will list all the consequences and what if, and what happens if you do that. And basically this gets shut down, and you go with this. And this, if you think about it, the head thinking, which is a very low level of awareness, and the gut, fear, emotion, that's what traps people. The people are trapped here. And this other world knows that. That's why it's used that to trap us. But when this comes forward and you do what you intuitively, instinctively know to be right, then that overpowers this. And what I found when I was going through this in the early days is, you know, there's a war goes on between your head and your gut and your heart. A war is probably not a good description, but there is a tussle for influence. And what happens is, when you want to follow your heart, you want to follow your intuition. This for me is the energetic connection, the biggest energetic connection to out there. I think the true self resides here during a human experience, the true core of self, or the connection to the true core of self. And what happens is you want to go with this, and then this comes in, gives you all the reasons why you shouldn't, all the consequences of doing that. This gives you the fear consequences, emotional consequences for doing that, and therefore you don't go with it. But what I decided, because you will know that when I came out, first of all, to talk about these things, the spiritual side of it, before I very quickly got into the name, states, places area in 1990, that I went through enormous levels of ridicule. I mean, historic levels. I mean, it was almost bizarre, the scale of it in this country, where I couldn't walk down any street without being laughed at by people anywhere I went. And you know, you turn the television on, the comedian only had to say my name and people started laughing. And I decided then, coming from where this feeling, that the worst thing I could do by going on with this was to completely mess up one brief experience as a human. And I thought, I can handle that. So I'm going with it. I'm going to see where this goes. And what happens you have this thing going on, or, you know, because people said to me, when you came out with all that stuff, didn't you know you get ridiculed? Actually, I had actually worked that out, but I did it anyway. And what happens eventually is this tussle stops. It stopped with me anyway, when the head, if you like, observes the fact that when you go with your heart, with your intuition, you may get into some scrapes, because this is not coming from where this is coming from. This is not coming from a sense of reality and action that the 5 sense world you're living in is coming from. So of course you're going to be at odds with the world when you go with this, because that's the whole point of opening your heart to something greater than the 5 sense jail cell. But it observes that when you go with your heart, you may get into some scrapes, you may get into some challenges, but it all works out in the end. And it works out not despite the challenges, but because of them. And I have this phrase, life gives you your greatest gifts brilliantly disguised as your worst nightmare. And when I look at that period of mass ridicule, I don't look back at it with the horror that you would think. I wouldn't say I look back at it with affection, but I look back at it as a wonderful gift, because it cleared me out of the prison that most people live in, which is the fear of what other people think, which is another version of what are the consequences of me doing this, which keeps people in the prison. Oh, I don't want those consequences. And what happened to me probably about, I don't know, 93, something like that, is my head and my heart came into sync. So when my intuition now says, well, I'm going to do this, my head goes, okay, let's go. It doesn't say, oh no, consequences, because I'm not bothered about consequences. I'm bothered about doing what I know to be right. And the consequences take care of themselves. And of course, so often when you do what you know to be right, your fear of the consequences stops you doing it. But if you do it, you find that actually it's much easier than you thought it was going to be. And the consequences either are not as bad as you thought they would be, or they're not of the nature you thought they would be, or the experience, the consequence, was a gift to take you to a greater place of awareness and possibility. So I don't think, if I don't do what the authorities tell me to do and basically comply with my own enslavement, what are the consequences for me? Don't think about it. I'm just not complying with my own enslavement. That's crazy. Because when you do that, you are enslaved, and for sure. But the other thing is that if enough people do it, if enough people go with this and do what they know to be right, then there are no consequences, because it becomes unenforceable. You know, you take masks. Well, mask wearing is unenforceable now by the authorities and by law enforcement, because there's not enough of them and there's vast numbers of the population. So what they've had to do is manipulate the population to be the enforcers of masks. This is what they've to get the great chunks of the target population to enforce the masks and these other fascistic impositions upon the population when they are members of the population that's having them imposed upon them, because there's not enough of them. If people think, well, what do we do? Well, the numbers game alone, there's billions of us being manipulated, and at the core of the core, you get them the cult in a core globally in one room. So the answer is there, but it comes from a transformation of human perception, both in self-identity and therefore the sense of your own power, but also in people doing what they know to be right rather than letting consequences imprison them, or perceptions of consequences imprison them.
Yeah. Would you say that what you're saying, and I totally agree with you, I just want to make sure that I understand it. What you're describing is a personal, individual choice or series of choices or lifestyle of continuing to expand through choices. It would be more powerful than protesting, boycotting, marching. I mean, this is something that's happening from the space between our proverbial ears, heart, as you were talking about earlier. This would be the most powerful thing that we can do from the individual standpoint. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, protest. I mean, I've spoken and taken part in many protests, including lockdown here. I mean, I was at two events in Trafalgar Square in London. They got 35 and 45,000 people. Wow. So I'm not against protest, because it can be a symbol of public feeling, and it can let people know, actually, you're not alone in how you see the world. There's vast numbers of people that can see it as well. But protest alone changes nothing. Look at the size of the protest there's been over the years. What changes things is non-cooperation.
Yeah.
It's Gandhi didn't make an impact, for instance, through protest alone. He made an impact by orchestrating non-cooperation, and because, again, you come back to the numbers. There are so few, tiny numbers by comparison to the target population that are ultimately doing the manipulating, that if the population didn't cooperate, then they couldn't have any power over us. And right. I've talked before about how easy it is through this acquiescence for this tiny one room of people to impose their will upon the whole population. It's ever so simple. If you think of the human society as a pyramid, and at the top of the pyramid, you've got this tiny inner circle core of the core group of this global cult. They are Satanists, they are psychopaths beyond belief, almost making the word psychopath irrelevant. So extreme are they. And then they impose their will upon the next level of the pyramid below them.
Right.
And that level acquiesces to the imposition of this group. Then the level below, which is acquiesced, then imposes that on the next level, which acquiesces to that and imposes on the next level. Now, very soon after you come down from that pyramid peak, you're meeting now levels of the hierarchy of human society has no idea there is a cult. There's no idea there is an agenda. But the same process continues of imposition, acquiescence, all the way down. And eventually you reach the massive humanity at the bottom of the pyramid. And if we acquiesce, as so many have, not least in the last 12 months, if we acquiesce at that point to that which is those levels that are imposing upon us, in this case, government, law enforcement, etc., then we create and complete a circuit between the tiny few at the top and the mass of the population, which has allowed those tiny few to impose their agenda, their will, upon the entirety of the human population, simply by imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence, imposition, acquiescence. And again, the answer staring us in the face. We've got to break that circuit. And if we do, then those few at the top have no power whatsoever, because their route to the population has been broken. And given the way the hierarchy works, it's the population have got to break that circuit, because the people in the middle are almost certainly not going to do it. And that's the answer. It's not finding a solution. We don't need to find a solution. We need to remove the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is people acquiescing to authority. And if you look through history, it's always gone on. And they acquiesce for two reasons. They're unthinking. They don't question. They just do whatever they're told because the authority knows best, or they can see that it's not right, but they fear authority, so they conform anyway. Those, again, we're back to exactly what's happened in 2020. And that's how it's done. And the answer is standing there looking us in the face. But again, this fear of authority is stopping so many people saying, okay, I'm not doing it. I'm not acquiescing with this. And for me, if we're talking about, spirituality and the nature of the I, the most important thing is to see the long game, and not see a human life in and of itself. Because if you play the long game, then I look at life and I think I'm all there is ever can be, having an experience. When that experience is over, I'm going to go on exploring forever. So this is just a brief experience. So consequences within that brief experience take on a certain light. But if you see yourself as the labels, the 5 sense self alone, then those same experiences, challenges, consequences take on a very different perception. So they become massive. Oh my God! See, if to refuse to cooperate with their own enslavement, my own enslavement, then law enforcement come and all this stuff, then so be it. I say, I can only say to myself, so be it. Because when people say to you, if you don't do what we tell you, if you don't obey what is designed to enslave you, this is what I'm going to do. This is what we're going to do. And my reply is, well, do it then. Yeah. Because I'm still not going to do what you say.
Yeah.
You can take me away, you stick me in jail. Well, okay. Well, I'm still something that never can be, having a brief experience called human. But I am not compromising with my with what I know to be right, which is I'm not going to cooperate with you. And because the alternative is to capitulate. Yeah. And if you capitulate, what you know for absolute certainty is for the rest of your life, because that's what it's meant to be, you're going to be in a state of Orwellian slavery, and your kids, granted, even more. But I don't know if I've got it here. Have I got it here? No, I don't think I have. But I was looking at a quote, and you've probably come across this one, where he said, if you face a challenge at the age of 38, and he was 38 when he said it, which is why he used that number. And you face a challenge that to stand up and do what you know, but you don't do it because you you don't want the consequences. You want to live longer or whatever. Then he said, you may go on to live till you're 90, but you will be as dead at 90 spiritually as you were at 38 when you refuse to stand up for what you knew to be right, because, as I would put it, the consequences made you conform. Right. It's this attitude, and like I say, you don't go looking for trouble. But if trouble comes and facing that trouble is what's necessary to do what you know to be right, then, you know, I can't tell people what to do. I don't want to tell people what to do. What I would do is I would do what I know to be right. Because
I'm with you.
if you don't, well, you know, where this ends is obvious. Not least now when we've seen how the world has transformed in the last 12 months, simply because of capitulation to authority.
Yeah. Speaking of that, and because I don't want to run out of time, we've got about 8 or 9 minutes left. One of the things that I've noticed in the body of your work as time's gone on chronologically, especially I saw this in Renegade when I rewatched it 2 nights ago. There were some scenes of you walking the street, talking to people. You were making comments over the video that your stuff is being received now the last 2, 3, 4 years, which I think is a kind of a micro of the macro. I mean, if it's happening there, it's happening in other places as well. And then also you showed a few presentations throughout. One of them was in your hometown. And at the end of one, you got teary-eyed. The applause, the standing ovation. Again, I think this serves to the fact that people are more open now, which is what you commented on. You know, based on that and your perception, your wealth of experience, how are we doing? Do you see more people saying, I do not consent? Do you see people move in that direction? Do you see the trajectory of the collective kind of following the suit of your life path and those people that are watching in terms of serving their guidance and that intuition?
Yeah, well, you see, because of what I've experienced for so long, I'm quite fortunate now. It's a bit of good karma, I think, because people who are kind of more relatively new to this, and I do completely understand it, don't get me wrong, they look at the world as it is now and they go, why aren't more people awake? Why? What's going on? Why can't they see it?
Yeah.
But when I started out in 1990, by comparison to today, there was no one awake. There was no one awake. There's so few people. I mean, I went to America to talk about this for the first time in 1996, and I was talking to 8 people. I talked in someone's front room to about 5. I mean, they didn't want to know. And so, because I've experienced that, I look at the current situation in a completely different light. Because when you walk down the street, even in your hometown here, and people are pointing at you and laughing at you and what have you, and then now, when I go out for a walk in the countryside where there's not many people, the ratio of people that walk past me and say, hey, I think it's great what you're doing. You know, I watch your videos, blah, blah, blah. What do you think about this? What do you think about that? And when I compare that now with what I've experienced over the decades, it's clear that there is an amazing awakening going on. And what's happened in 2020 is that a lot of people have become more asleep, deeper in the coma because fear has taken them there. But in contrast, a very, very large number of people have started to awaken from the illusion, because what's been happening up until relatively recently, really early 2020, is that this cult has been working under the radar. If you go looking for it and you're aware of how it works, you can see it very clearly, but most people couldn't because they're getting on with their lives.
Right.
But what has happened symbolically is that this cult has walked into the room for vast numbers of people now. They are now seeing that actually the world's not like they thought it was. And when they look at the coordination, where all these different countries all over the world are responding in exactly the same way, pretty much.
Right.
They can see that actually there's some coordinating force here. So basically, that events have forced them into re-evaluating what the hell is this reality that I'm experiencing. And it's another version, if you take it collectively, of life gives you your greatest gifts brilliantly disguised as your worst nightmare. And I said years ago, I said, people say, people are going to wake up to all this. I said, well, it's going to have to get really, really bad.
Yeah.
We're going to have to get a much longer along the road of where this is meant to go before we're going to have any mass awakening, because the people will overwhelmingly not perceive what they can't see. And also, they don't want to perceive something that they would rather not see. So, if you're trying to tell someone what they want to hear, that's easy. Trying to tell someone what they don't want to hear, that's much more difficult. Because, with the first one, the door's open. They want to hear it. But with the second one, they don't want to hear it because they don't want to believe it. They don't want it to be true. So they are much more likely to say, oh, no, load of rubbish, mate. Change the subject, because I actually don't want to face the fact that it might be true. But what's happened in 2020 is it's gone here.
Yeah.
Been put in our face. So unless you are solid gold asleep, and vast numbers of people still are, obviously, you can no longer deny what your daily experience is showing you. And this has been a nightmare experience, continues to be, but it is awakening people. And going back to what you said a few minutes ago, this is something I've been going on about now for a while. That there is a two-stage, a basic two-stage awakening process, call it what you like. One is to awaken to the reality on a much greater level of what you're actually experiencing and what's going on. That's stage one. Stage two is ceasing to cooperate with it.
Yeah.
And there's lots of people, very, very large numbers of people worldwide now who have got to stage one. They can see it.
Yeah.
But they've not got to stage two, which is, and we're not cooperating with it. And when that happens on a mass scale, then the few have lost that circuit connection in great numbers of people. And it's always the few that start the momentum.
Yeah.
And if people start to see people standing up, refusing to cooperate, yes, they'll get all the abuse from the faster sleepers. But if they don't care and they do what they know to be right anyway, then other people start to join them and join them and join them and join them. It's like, starting a march over 1,000 miles, and there's maybe 2 or 3 people on the march. By the time it hits Washington, D.C., it's 1 million or more. This is how the momentum starts. But those 2 people at the start of the march, they had to walk first. And this is where the courage comes in, or you go to a point beyond fear of the consequences, which means you don't need courage, because courage is overcoming fear, and you just do what you know to be right. It's just second nature. You wouldn't consider not doing what you know to be right. And like I keep saying, it doesn't mean you don't have to be canny, and you don't have to pick your moments and what have you. It doesn't mean that you just rush at the wall and smack it with your head. You can be canny and you can be wise in the way you do it, but doing it is not an option in terms of not doing it, because you wouldn't even consider the possibility of not doing it. And this is where this is coming from. It's what we call love, but love has become such a discredited word in the way that humans have used it over the years. They've talked about attraction. And attraction love, that's fine, but this heart love, what we have to put unconditional in front of it because love has become so discredited and misused. This will always do what it knows to be right. Will never consider doing anything else. And
to thine own self be true. Yeah.
Yeah, and so here's the answer. Boom, here. I've got a book out. My latest book. It's called The Answer.
The
And
answer.
it's all about this, and it's all about many other things, and it takes apart the COVID hoax in fine detail. But the foundation of the book is that this is where the answer is.
Right. This last thing, and thank you so much again for sitting down with us. One of the things I noticed in Renegade as well, and again, not having 30 years and not having the wide berth, but these people that are listening to myself, again, similar life path. Very difficult. You mentioned being ridiculed and all the things that you've gone through. It looks like you have a very powerful core group, inner circle that supports what you're doing. And it looks like, your sons and I think your former partner and maybe some others, you guys have really stuck together over all these years. That's quite incredible. Has that been a big part of your ability to do what you've done?
Yeah, I mean, the family thing is an interesting one because, not so much, my children, because they were obviously much younger at the time. But I was married to Linda for 29 years, who's still with us in the group, I should say. But I was having experiences, and I was acting upon those experiences, and I knew this is what I have to do. But people in the family, they weren't having those experiences.
Yeah.
So they had to go on trust with the very strange things that was happening to Dad and David, and they stuck with it. And there were times when I'm sure they thought, "What's happening? What's happening?" Because I was a television presenter on the BBC and well known in Britain on the telly all the time, and suddenly and they experienced that, and then suddenly this Dad is being ridiculed by everything that moves. So, and it was a real challenging time because what is going on, what's happening to Dad, and I would go traveling for maybe 2 or 3 months at a time all around America and other countries, researching this and trying to talk to people. Not many in those days, like I say, and so I would say to my kids, like Jamie, I'm going away again. Oh, Dad, don't go. But where I was coming from is that by that time, I knew where this was going.
Yeah.
I knew the world that was being planned for my kids and my grandkids who've now arrived also. And so you think, what's the best contribution I can make to their lives? What's the best contribution I can make to the lives of all children? Is it to be there all the time, like most dads are? Or is it to do everything I can with what's left of my life to make sure that I can do everything I can to stop them having to live in that dystopia, that beyond Orwellian dystopia? And what's happened, of course, is as the years have gone on, they have, because I've never pushed this on them. I don't think that's right. If I was a religious person, for instance, I'm not. Bricks and mortar religion, as my father used to call it. But good luck to those who are. But I'm not. Then the idea that I would say to my children, you've got to have the same religious beliefs as me. I couldn't do it. I don't think that's right. we bring consciousness into the world so that they can experience this reality, but and we look after them, and we nurture them, and we give them all the help we can, but they've come here to live their life, not ours.
Yeah.
So I never pushed it on them. But what happened, of course, is that the more they heard the information, and the more they saw the world changing in relation to that information, the more that they started to appreciate that actually all those strange things that happened to Dad have actually, got some validity here. And so, Gareth, my eldest son, he does a heck of a lot of work now with Iconic, media platform, and also he's runs davidicke.com, and he does a brilliant job supporting, not just supporting me, but in his own right, communicating. Jamie, my youngest son, he in fact he didn't just run Iconic, he created it from nothing. Amazing achievement. And they're very, very aware people. My daughter Kerry is fantastic as well. And when I look at Gareth, you're talking about consciousness. Do you know Gareth, when he was at school, he didn't get C's in his exams, and he didn't get D's. He got E's. I think he would be happy to have got Zs. when I was at school in the 1950s and 60s, I went to school because it was great to be with my mates. And in those days, you had to go to school anyway. So I played football and I was with my mates. But somewhere again here, when I look back, it was telling me, you don't have to concentrate on all this stuff, because A, you won't need most of it, and B, most of it's not valid anyway. And so I toddled through school, and I concentrated with bits that I found interesting, and the rest, looking out the window most of the time. Icke, stop looking out the window. That was the mantra of my whole life. But Gareth, he concentrated at school even less than me. Right?
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, right?
He's left school at 16. He's got E's in his exams. And what is he today? He's a highly intelligent, multiply creative human being. Yeah. And this is the point about education, the education system. It's not there to educate, it's there to program.
Yeah. Exactly.
And so, this, this very tight group around me, and, we have people that work with us as well at Iconic, and they're fabulous as well. We need to be a tight-knit group, because what happened, of course, on Capitol Hill a few days ago was all part of the spin to justify phenomenal amounts of censorship and oppression of those who are pushing back on this. And so, we need to be very strong from here on in.
Right on. And on that note, how can we support you? I mean, I know you have davidicke.com. Iconic has a link there. You just mentioned a new book, but is there anything we can do to support you that you're working on presently?
Yeah, I work 7 days a week, mate. 7 days a week. And that's not being a martyr. Oh, I work 7 days a week. Look at me. It's because A, it's necessary, and B, I enjoy it. And if I'm not doing it, then I'm thinking, well, why am I not doing it? But in terms of davidicke.com, that's the website, the main website where there's news in its right context, I would suggest, on there every day. In fact, it's updated several times a day, and all my videos are on there, and all the connections to all the things that I've done. And then there's Iconic, and this is a media platform which has now got God, he must have 900 odd series, programs, full-length documentaries. There's a new one just come out called Informed Consent, where doctors and medical professionals give a very different version of what vaccines are. And also it talks to 3 mothers who had children damaged by vaccines, and they talk about their experience. It's a very powerful, and couldn't come out at a more appropriate time. And I do a weekly roundup of the week's news on there every week. There's a new program coming up soon, a weekly program which Gareth's going to do, and there's just so much stuff on there, and not just about conspiracy, but right across the range: spirituality, nature of reality. There's I think it's being put together now. I know it's been shot. All about what else is going on in the field around us in terms of entities and happenings that we can't see. What is this ghostly phenomenon and the paranormal? What's all that? So it's the whole range, and I'm delighted with it and what Jamie has created.
Wow. Yeah, we appreciate it, and I just want to say to everybody, let's this is the year of coming together, and like he was talking about, we got to be tight. So I would encourage you to get over to davidicke.com. I've been spending some time there, and Iconic, the platform that he's talking about, which I haven't been able to dip in too much, but I'm really excited to do that now. David, thank you so much. Thank your family. Thank you for everything that you've done, and Godspeed to you. All blessings to you and yours. And if there's anything we can ever do, whatever that could be, please don't hesitate, you or Gareth, to reach out if you want to expand awareness of something you're doing. We have a pretty solid network. But once again, I just want to say thank you for sharing space with us and honoring us with your presence.
Thanks very much. It's been a real pleasure. And I'll just make this point too. No one is on some level of reality forcing consciousness into bodies. No. we decide to experience this reality, so there has to be a reason for it. And if you look at my 2 sons, Gareth, he's a singer-songwriter. He was going down that music road. My other son, Jamie, he was a goalkeeper like I was. He had trials for Manchester United and Aston Villa and these big clubs. And they thought that he was going down that route. But they were born to do a job. They were born to make a contribution. They came to do that. And as with myself, all those experiences where they thought they were going to go in different directions, they were all experiences bringing them to a state of awareness to actually do the job they'd really come for. So they're all listening to this show all over the world are people who have come here to make a contribution. And that's why they came. And it's time to make it. My God, it's time to make it.
Yeah, we're with you on that. We're with you on that. All blessings, brother.
Cheers, mate. We'll talk again, I'm sure.
Oh, that'd be great. We really would look forward to that. Thank you so much.